start, baby. Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of the Bald Avenger Show. I am Jason Cisneros, the Bald Avenger, the tattooed guru, the purveyor of all things common sense, and a legend in my own mind, Dr. Gordon.
Yeah, probably.
So I just wanted to let everybody know today I have a very good friend of mine coming to us, and I'm excited about the conversation. It's going to be something that I'm unfamiliar with because I happen to not be female, but we're going to talk about menopause. We're going to talk about her world, her experience in the surgical world, all of the different things she's doing philanthropy wise. We have become very, very dear friends, very close. We know a lot of things about each other that maybe we shouldn't share on here, but
probably.
We've become very good friends, and you and your life partner, your wife, is amazing.
Dr. Val.
Dr. Val, and she's the Italian, right? She's the spice in the relationship. So we'll have to.
She's very Italian.
Yeah, very Italian. But the other thing that I can vouch for is that the cooking skills and the food that I was fed when I went to your house out there in New York was amazing. So, but I want to just let everybody know she's written a book. It's called the Managing Menopause. And what was the last part of it?
Managing Menopause, the Ultimate Guidebook.
Yes.
And that's available on Amazon. And if you do a search for the author, Dr. Michelle Gordon, then you can find that. I also have a cookbook that I did with Cassandra, Chef Cassandra, who you met in my home. Yes. And that's called Menopause Movement Recipes for Living.
Oh, very cool. Did I have a menopause approved meal that evening?
You might have. I don't remember.
Good.
I know I did.
I know. Exactly. Well, cool. Well, let's start out the conversation. Just give us a little bit of background about you have a very kind of unique approach and a unique entrance into the world, but give us a little bit of background from before you became a doctor and give us a little bit about your background and your life.
Okay. So I started medical school older. I was 31 when I started medical school. So before that, I had started college a little bit later. I tried to go to college right out of high school, and I just found out that I wasn't ready yet. I wasn't mature enough. I was living in Washington State, and then I ended up moving to California, and that's probably not a topic for today, but suffice it to say that I was searching for some religious relief, and that doesn't exist. And I was in Southern California. I got married and went to college. I had a baby. I'm probably still the only woman ever to have a baby at Harvey Mudd College, which is a small school of science and engineering in Southern California. And then after he was born, just less than 2 years, he was born in my junior year, and I finished college. And then shortly after I graduated college, he came down with, he got really sick, and I had to quit working. He had a cancer. He was 21 months and he had cancer. And so that gave me a really unique perspective. And I'd always thought that I would go to medical school, but I wasn't sure. And all of a sudden I was kind of thrown into this role of being a full-time caretaker. And at the same time, my marriage it wasn't working, and it hadn't been working for a while. And so we broke up, and I was like, okay, I got to do something. And so I couldn't, it was funny because I couldn't really work. I had this kid that was really a full-time job. And so getting him to chemo and making sure everything was okay. And so I applied to a ton of medical schools all around the country. And I ended up having an interview at the one school that was close to my home. And I ended up interviewing with them on April 15th of 1996. And that was like a week after my brother died. So it was just like trauma after trauma after trauma. And I got waitlisted. And so I was like, man, I got to get into school. I got to get into school. And so it's like, I was always thinking about it, always trying to figure it out. And I would call them every single week and say, okay, I live right here. If a seat becomes available, I'm coming. Mm-hmm. And 5 days before class started, this was back in the days where we didn't really have cell phones, right? We had answering machines that had tape.
Yeah. For all you millennials, look it up. Google it.
So I would call and check my messages from home. From my office, like 5 and 6 times a day. I was like I was in full on manifestation mode. I had no idea I was manifesting anything, but that's what I was doing. Mm. And 5 days before school started, I got a phone call that said, we have a seat for you. Give us a call. And so I call them up and they say, we need $1,250. And I'm like, holy shit, I only have $500 in my bank account. Mm. So I called my dad. I said, Dad, I need $1,250. I need it right now. And he sent me the money. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm getting emotional.
Good.
He sent it by Western Union. And I'd never used Western Union before, and I've never used it since. And I went to Western Union and I picked up the money and I ran to the school. It was like 7 miles away. And I just got there as fast as I could, and I secured that seat. Mm. And so I went through medical school, but I didn't really go to class because my son was getting chemo all the time. Mm. So that's how I started. And then I ended up going to Chicago for my internship. And then I ended up in New York for my residency. And then I stayed in New York. I got a job and started a practice in 2005. Mm. And I did a general surgery residency. That's so awesome. How do I get to menopause from general surgery? Right.
Well, there's been a lot of years, yeah. Right? You and I have had private conversations. I also know that your childhood was not all that easy either.
Right.
And and a lot of what we get here in the Misfit Nation, right? The people that are part of the Bald Avenger world, and it is that we've had these traumatic things, right? You just said trauma, and you skirt right past it because it's like, and you don't even talk about your childhood, which was rough and yeah. And that kind of stuff. And then, all of the other things that you overcome. One of the things that you're very, very strong in and that I admire about you is how strong mentally you keep yourself, right? How upbeat, how positive, how forward momentum. When you've got one thing going on, you're just solving it by putting something else into place. And I just would like for you for the audience sake, because a lot of people that are coming in and watching this are people who've had trauma in the past, right? Mm-hmm. They've had some things that have happened to them, and they're looking for that spark of, how do you get through it? Like, what are some of the things when you're, I've got 5 children, and, my daughter fell through a glass table one time. I thought I was going to freaking die because I don't want to see any of my kids suffer. Right.
Right.
And I can't, it breaks my heart to even hear the thought, 21 months old.
Yeah.
And your comes down with cancer and you're taking them to chemo. Like, and you're trying to get into school, and and your dad gives you the money to go, and you're running over there to make it out. How in the world? And then you've become, you say, well, I went into surgery. You've been doing surgery. You're a world-class surgeon. And then you get to menopause. So let's slow it down just a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories. And it's not the story that's important, right? Because this is a lot of things that you find out, right? That everybody that is alive today has gone through something rough. You've had to face down some demons. You've had to face down some trauma, and you've had to figure out how to move it to your next level. But what are some of the things that maybe you take for granted in how you approach life, how you look at it, and some mantras, maybe some tools that you would suggest to people that are going through trauma, and knowing that as you went through that, you then became a world-class surgeon, and you're also moving on to this other area called menopause?
Yeah. So it took me a long time to realize that I could make a choice about, I was in my 20s, I think, when I really started realizing that how I responded to my childhood trauma was my responsibility. And that if I continued to blame everybody who victimized me, I was then continuing to give them power over me. Mm-hmm. And so that was really freeing for me. And I learned that through that was the reason I was in that religious thing. And just for your audience, I'll give a little bit of background. We don't want to give too much backstory, but the background is that, I grew up in Washington State, which is a super, super conservative Christian state, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm a lesbian. And so that was really hard to reconcile with the Christianity. And so I came out in the 80s, and I didn't understand what was really happening to me, even though it was ever since my childhood. My best friend when I was a little girl, I was like, oh, I'm just going to marry her. So it was okay, I was wired that way. Yeah. And so I sought the ex-gay promised land in Southern California. That's what I call it. And actually I'm working on a memoir, and throughout the memoir, I call it the ex-gay promised land. And so that's not ready yet, but hopefully in the next few months, it'll be on Amazon under my publisher. But yeah, so that's kind of what happened there. And the reason I was in that whole program was to learn that I didn't have to be a victim. So things happened to me that I had zero control over, but what I have control over are my responses. So I can respond, and as somebody who uses drugs or drinks, and I did that. I won't say I didn't. Or I can, respond as somebody who is empowered because of what happened. And even when I was a little girl and people were trying to break my spirit, I would always get back up. That just, I had resilience built into my DNA, thankfully. So, but then I think that it's getting through trauma is like layers of an onion. It really, I know that's kind of cliche, but as I've gotten older, I've sought more of a spiritual path, and in seeking the spiritual path, I've become a lot more resilient even than I was when I was a child, learning how to kind of unpack my own responses. So I was always very, very prickly, not approachable, and wary of everybody. And I've begun to understand that we really are all the same. Yeah. We're just all the same.
We're just all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So, so then you go to school and you become a surgeon.
Right.
And you've had a practice in New York, upstate New York, for how long?
So it's I opened the practice in 2005, and I started expanding it in 2014, and I expanded it from just me to I have 4 surgeons who work for me now, And this has given me the freedom to build the menopause business.
Right.
And so we cover 2 hospitals. And we do
what type of, explain to everybody, because when you think about a surgeon, you think, okay, you're just sitting there and it's, it's like, kind of a cattle call. But what you did was you started up a business because they're outsourcing emergency care.
Right. Yeah. So what I decided to do was kind of not live within what society wants doctors to do. Society, the way, I mean, because doctors are not taught any business on purpose. Doctors are taught to act like a factory worker. As we go through, just like the way that we're educated when we grow up, we're supposed to respond to bells and things like that. That's the whole factory worker mentality. Doctors are taught to be cogs in a machine and are not taught to think independently in the sense of, building their own business. And I think it's intentional in America that doctors are, even though some of us want to be entrepreneurs, we're not taught. We have to seek somewhere else to find the business skills because we're not taught that in medical school at all. And
well, and I want to just give you kudos, because the reason our paths crossed was because you're a surgeon and you're seeking out business skills, right?
Right.
And you were like, and so that's how we were introduced. We're like, Jason does business stuff, and we, on the consulting side of what we do, we teach what I've done in the past, like you would create a school for surgeons, and that's not the typical doctor's approach. That and like you said, I want to just acknowledge the fact that you said, I want to know this other skill set on top of what you're already doing, in surgery, which you become world-class at, because that's what happens when you get really, really good at something. Sometimes you get bored, right? Sometimes it just becomes so rote, and you're saving lives and you're doing stuff that the rest of us go, holy hell, that's amazing. Right. But the thing that I love about your personality is you're willing to seek it out. You're willing to seek out those business skills and tools. Yeah.
I mean, there was just so much I didn't know. And I had a consultant who had helped me a little bit, but also hindered me and had kind of eroded the culture in the organization. And I had, I was recommended to you through Garrett. And I had, I kind of won it was like an auction really to spend a day with Garrett. And so I won that, and I went and spent the day with Garrett, and I was talking a lot about my business that I felt was not doing as well as it should be able to, and then brought you guys in. And what has happened is we've had a complete turnaround in the culture of our business and how we record what we're doing. So that the whole idea is that anybody can come into any position in the company and get it done. And that's a testament to your skills as a consultant.
Well, you had a good team. I mean, one of the great things about you is that you attracted really good people. You had a couple of people in there that weren't as effective, we'll say. Yeah. As everybody else, but you had a great team. You had built all the fundamentals of making sure that you surrounded yourself with good people, and then executing on our systems and processes. It made a radical shift in the culture and the direction of the company. And I'm just so proud of you, so proud of the team, because the work that you do is important.
Right.
And it's gotten to a place where now it has freed you up to go chase this other passion of yours, to be able to go into this menopause area,
right,
and become an expert, where I think a lot of people are struggling in that area to get some good answers in that arena.
Yeah. So at any given time in America, there's at least 50 to 70 million women going through menopause. And we're all going to go through it because we're all going to have, we're going to stop being reproductive. The issue really comes down to environmental factors and what we eat, because the Japanese and the Chinese don't really have a word for menopause until recently. So what I teach I have a course called the Meno System, MENO, and I teach a lot. I teach about, what's happening with our hormones and whether we're going through a second puberty, which I think is kind of funny because it really does feel that way. And, in puberty, at least we get we get sat down and we have the talk, right? But nobody has the talk with us about menopause. We don't know. So so I kind of have that little talk with people, and then we go into diet, and we do a kind of a deep dive on diet, and then we talk about exercise, mindset, and then libido. Because
before we go there, let me ask, because one of the things I did a little bit of research. I never would have researched menopause before, but I did a little bit of research, and it seems to me like one of the things that causes one of the big issues that women deal with is that they try to deny it for a period of time, right? They try to deny the fact that they're going through that change. Do you find that very common?
I think that there is an element of denial, but I think it comes down to, I mean, we have several emotional reasons, things that happen. I mean, we get, our children grow up, we have a loss of understanding of our purpose. While we're raising our children, it's easy to get stuck in letting life happen rather than designing life. And what I try to teach is that we can design our life to be whatever we want it to be, and that's just part of our ability to create.
So it's just another phase, and being properly prepared for that phase is really what you're offering up, and cause a gap.
But what happens is that because we don't have a lot of education around it, it kind of sneaks up on us, and that's what happened to me. So it snuck up on me. I'm like, what is happening, and why am I like turning red at the drop of a hat, and why do I feel like I'm blushing, but I'm not embarrassed. So what's happening? And so I went on a search, and it was about a 3-year search of just researching, trying to figure out. And I was like, I cannot be the only woman who's having so much trouble with menopause. And so I found. Did
you have misdiagnosis? Because I hear a lot of times people are like the fibromyalgia or Hashimoto's, or what are the signs for people to understand what they're going through so that they can avoid going, looking for 3 years and start to solve it quicker?
I mean, I think it's important that women know that the average age of menopause is 51, but we can have symptoms up to 8, maybe 8 years before that. And that's just as we're losing estrogen. It's, that's really, and then we can have symptoms even after. So menopause is defined as 12 months without a period. So we can still be having periods and still be fertile, but our ovaries are starting to decrease the amount of steroids that they're making, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And then we start to have symptoms of withdrawal. And menopause is not a disease. Menopause is a natural thing that happens to everyone. It's just that we just don't talk about it for whatever reason. I mean, my mother went through it early because she had a hysterectomy, and she never talked about it. And one of the hallmark symptoms is, women complain a lot about weight gain, but one of the biggest symptoms that I see women complain about is mood swings and brain fog. And they're like, well, am I having dementia because I can't remember where I left my keys, or I can't pull that word out of my head, and it was always really easy to get that word, and now I can't pull it out. And then the other thing that happens is the one minute, you're my best friend, and the next minute, just because you moved my shit from one place to another, okay, it's like I want to take your head off. So, and I'm sure many women, if you have a lot of women in the, between the ages of, say, 43 and 55, they're going to, I don't know what your comments are looking like, but this is something that we see in menopause.
Yeah. Interesting. So it's kind of like the equivalent of, ED for men, because men don't want to talk about that crap either,
Right. But ED is truly a vascular problem. Right. ED is not a hormone problem.
Okay. But
so that's why Viagra works.
Okay. Right. Because it opens that back up. Right.
Right.
So, but you've also got that loss of testosterone and stuff that happens naturally for men over time. And,
it doesn't happen as much though, because men are still fertile throughout their whole lives.
Got it. So it's more of a fertility thing rather than a functional thing.
Right. And then as we lose our hormones, then we also lose our sex drive, which can be really difficult. And it's interesting because, just to get back to Viagra for a second, when Viagra came out, we found it was really a antihypertensive. That's what it was created for. Right. And they found this side effect of priapism. Okay, priapism is a long-term erection. Right. And so they marketed it, and all these women who are in menopause and didn't want to have sex anymore, now all of a sudden had to deal with these men who are horny and want to have sex. So it completely changed overnight. Because these men weren't able to, because they smoked or
right.
So anyway.
Well, it's an interesting subject because it's the male female interaction, and men maybe having this situation going on with the women. Greta just said that she's going through menopause right now, so I'm sure this conversation is absolutely valuable.
Yeah.
And so there's two sides of it, right? I mean, there's the men that are kind of having to deal with it. I mean, that's probably a completely male, masculine, like for us, like we have to deal with you going through this.
Well, I think that the men can be supportive of their partner through menopause. That's
might be a good show for them to watch.
Right. But I do have like a support group, a free support group on Facebook called Menopause Movement with Dr. Michelle Gordon, and you can get into that just by going to Facebook and searching it. And that's only for women. The men are not allowed in there.
Got it.
And it's also a closed group. So sexist, yes, it is very sexist, but men don't have menopause. So
that's true. Yeah, it's okay for women to be sexist. I've come to understand that. but here's the thing. I mean, if any man who follows you has questions about menopause, I go live on my page every day at 8 a.m. Eastern, and I talk about life and I talk about menopause symptoms, and people message me and I answer. So I'm more than willing to help any man who wants to understand. Okay. And certainly they can buy my course. Got it.
Right.
That's always the best thing to do.
Absolutely.
Courses are put together from people that know more, right? And you can buy the information. So I highly suggest that they do that. Greta just said she's signing up today. So
that's great. Answer the questions.
Yep. So the natural progression. So keep going. What you give, what is something that somebody can do right now if they're thinking they're going through this? Are the symptoms, because I really am genuinely interested, are the symptoms similar to that you get with other diagnoses, right?
I mean, I think they can be. There are other, external symptoms like joint pain that can happen, itchy skin, vaginal dryness, vaginal atrophy. These are real problems that women have. And we also see, because of our diet, we eat a diet that has endocrine disruption in it. And, the standard American diet is not a healthy diet. Right. It's filled with bad fats. It's filled with bad sugars. It's filled with all sorts of, it's bad salts. It's just not enough vegetables. The standard American diet is just horrible. So, most of us are raised drinking cow milk, which has a whole bunch of hormones in it, especially if you're drinking the non-fat version of cow's milk. And the whole non-fat, so a big part of my course is all about diet, because the whole non-fat thing comes from a really flawed study that occurred by this guy called Ansel Keys, and he was wrong. And he was wrong, and the sugar industry backed him, because sugar is really the cause of a lot of problems. So it's kind of messy what I'm saying, because it's hard to go through, in a short period like this. But
I watched you be very dedicated and very disciplined while I was with you. We did a deep dive on your company, and then we ate at your place, and you have a very structured meal plan.
All right. Well, I don't have menopause symptoms either.
Right.
But when I go off my diet, I do.
Yeah.
When I go off my diet, I start to, get hot flashes, or I'm a little more moody. And so there's that's why I developed this diet, because it isn't really a weight loss diet, although that may be a side effect. I mean, we gain weight because we lose estrogen and our body wants to hold on to it. And so we create more belly fat, and there's a whole problem there. But I gained 50 pounds almost overnight. It's what it felt like. Yeah. And I was able to, through eating the way I eat, I was able to lose 40 pounds of it. So now I've got 10 pounds. But,
well, that probably helps with Val chasing you around too.
Yeah, well, true. But, it's, in terms of getting through menopause, I mean, I think the biggest thing is having a community of women that you can talk to, where it's safe just to say whatever, but not a complaining community. And what I've found is that there's, lots and lots of, every time I'll post in the group or whatever, and not all the time, but there's a lot of complaints and people saying, oh, this sucks and whatever. But, at the end of the day, it doesn't suck. It's only what you make it. And I've made this into the best time of my life. I mean, I am so happy. Listen, I don't have any kids at home. I can travel the world. Right.
I know it's hard to catch you.
Yeah. I'm working hard to create, to build this business and to impact as many women as I can. And on top of that, I have a charity that I work with. And so a portion of the online proceeds goes to this charity. It's Studio Samwell, and it's a school. It's got a school now in Ethiopia, but the whole purpose was to keep girls out of the sex trade and to keep girls in school. And they started by teaching girls how to make menstrual kits. So because when they started getting their menses, they weren't able to go back to school. And so they make these menstrual kits that are washable, and then they can go to school. And now they've got a university and they're teaching coding. And I mean, she's just really, her name is Tam Horton, but she's really impacted the lives of so many girls. And they don't have to go into the sex trade,
that's a commonality amongst, Misfit Nation and the people that watch the show is everybody that comes on here that's of consequence and has done something with their life. There's a common theme there that you're giving back, right? Because there's so much that you can make yourself. And then, you're looking at that next level of satisfaction, fulfillment, right? Really is the word. Is in giving back and lifting people up. So what got you interested in going down that path to help that there in Ethiopia and trafficking and all that other kind of stuff?
Well, so I used to be involved in an organization called Entrepreneurs Organization, and I met a woman by the name of Colette, who her business is haute couture for hair. And so she's a big, fashion person, but she would have these gatherings at her apartment for women of EO. So I went there, and one of them was they asked us to bring bras, and so my wife is a big she has she has a lot of clothes, and so I said, Val, clean out your bra drawer. We're going to go down there. And so we took 20 bras down there, and we met them, and they started talking about the NGO. And I said, and they were just getting started. And I said, listen, I'll give you $1,000 right now. I mean, why not? You guys got, and then I've just been with them ever since.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good. And to see them progress, right? And to see them actually doing good work in the world. Awesome. Yeah.
It's really, it's amazing. They're great.
Is that part of your training or your coaching, for women going through menopause is I heard you say it earlier, which is to reset a purpose, right? Because if you've had your kids and now they're gone and you're trying to reset that purpose, do you feel like philanthropy is another valuable tool for people to get involved in?
I think it can be. I think that philanthropy is how do I say this? Not everyone can afford it. Okay. And so, in the interest of trying to help as many women as I can, I want to get them off the hook in terms of the philanthropy part and say, I'm going to give part of my proceeds so that, maybe you don't have to if you can't afford it. right now, because I do think that it's important, but it's if you're not able to put food on your table, then it's not something that you can do necessarily. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, we teach there's different levels, right? You got to fill your own tank. You got to put your own oxygen mask on, any of those fortune cookies that we're talking about. And, and so, part of that is maybe resetting that purpose is you start a business, because the internet has really democratized, revenue generation to a large degree.
Sure.
Business has democratized. It's a great, like very often refer to it as the great equalizer, because once you get into business, you're playing the same game as a Bill Gates or an Oprah. And so maybe starting that as a way of creating new purpose and whatnot. And I've seen some very powerful women in business. You're one of them. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So, cool. What next?
What is next for me or for us to talk about?
Whatever you'd like to talk about. So you've got the menopause thing, and
yeah.
I want to give people a place to go, right? You have a gift for everybody called the Menopause Blueprint.
Right.
And where do they go to get that?
So we have to look at the chat. It's kind of a long, I don't have a,
you know what? I may have it actually, and I may be able
it's in the chat. So I think probably in your show notes, you should put that link.
Okay.
Because it's https://blueprint.drmichelle-gordon.com/sf/ce83bb81. So I don't have a short link for that.
I just posted it. So
yeah, great. Okay. And then I have the course is going to reopen in July. And if anybody wants to sign up for my free workshop, which talks all about menopause and ways, it's a 3-video series on menopause. They can sign up for that at menopauseworkshop.com.
Okay. I've got that link here as well. I'll go ahead and post
right. That. And then my Facebook page is Dr. Michelle Gordon. And if you want to send me an email, you can send me an email to drgordon@menopausemovement.com, Dr. Gordon.
Fantastic. Good. Okay. So those 2 links are in there, and that's how everybody gets a hold of you. And so your idea is that what were your numbers? 50 to 70 million women are at one point.
In the USA.
In the USA.
Just in the USA. Yeah. In the USA, 50 to 70 million women in the USA are experiencing menopause at any given time.
And the gap you saw was that there's not a heck of a lot of good information or education for women as they're going through it to be able to, like what you've done. I mean, essentially you've paused menopause.
I've tried to. I mean, there's always the option of taking hormones, but there's risks with hormones, and not everybody can take hormones. Mm-hmm. And I don't prescribe hormones. I'm not a hormone specialist. I'm a surgeon. I'm not a gynecologist or an endocrinologist. And so my option is to change the way we eat, think, and move to make menopause the best time of our lives.
Awesome. All right. So, excellent. Well, one of the things that I'd like to end with, I know you've got to go, you're busy and stuff, but I'd like you just to give your best advice to people. You've lived an incredible life, and I hope we capture that here in the show just a little bit, but you've lived an incredible life. You continue to live an incredible life. You're refusing, you're sort of refusing to stop. Right. And I think that's what I love about you most, is that there's this progress. And we, you and I are going to work on something together for doctors to get that business mindedness in there. Because I think, again, it's freed you up to go do this other thing, and, while fixing what you had and making it more sustainable for the future. Because what you've done over 14 or 15 years is you've created a business model that works, right? An emergency surgery that works inside of these different hospitals. And so what advice would you give to people that they can take with them, and what they would apply to their own life, as far as look, I'm talking to my child. I'm talking to, I've got one piece of advice to give the universe. What would that
so be? I have 2 things. Okay. And the first thing is that we can create anything.
Mm.
We can create anything.
Mm.
And that comes from tapping into the universal isness of us.
Mm.
Okay. And the second thing is everything is belief.
Mm.
Everything is belief. There is no truth. Everything is belief.
Right.
And once you come to an understanding of that, then I mean, yeah, gravity is a truth. Okay, I'll give you. I'm a scientist, so you know, everything's going to fall at 9.8 meters per second squared. But other things, the truths that we think are true are probably beliefs that we learned as children.
Mm.
And so examine everything, try and look at life with, I just talked about this morning on my live, try and look at everything with a child's mind. Because when you can see a new perspective, you can change your mental model, you can change your reality, you can have an alternate reality, and that's what breeds resilience. It isn't, I mean, you don't have to let life happen. You can create your life.
And people, everybody watching, everybody listening to this, depending on what platform you're on, it really does. We're a miracle. The fact that you're drawing breath right now, you are a miracle.
Yes.
And we get beat up by society. We get beat up by advertising that you're not good enough. So you have to have this Gucci bag, or you have to have, you have to have this perfume, or you have to have, you have to dress this certain way, or drive that certain car, or live in this certain zip code for you to be complete. And one of the things that I really, really adore about you and your wife and the life that you live is that anything is possible. That it is up to your mindset, that you just decide, hey, I want to do this show. Okay. That the show is working. It didn't work. It's working. It's going to work better in the future. You have this incredible resilience and positive mindset that you bring to things, but you also back it up with the education, right? You just said, I'm a scientist. There's this, right? And
right.
It's science and art kind of combined. And, the work that you do, the life-saving work that you do as a surgeon being translated over into the menopause world, and your passion and your wisdom and the things that people can learn from you, not only having a holistic approach, which I think is, but you've also got the medical background to sort of back it up. Plus you've got the experience of having gone through it and going through it yourself.
Yeah.
So I highly suggest that anybody that's going through this phase of life, this natural occurrence, that you follow her, that you jump on her page. She does a lot of giving for free. Like you do a Facebook Live almost every day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every day, 8 a.m.
Yeah. No matter where you are in the world. And that's what connects us together. I mean, I know business brought us together, but what's going to keep us friends for a lifetime is your commitment to continually adding value and easing suffering in the world. And I admire you for that.
That's the whole idea.
That's the whole idea.
If I can help one woman get through menopause better, then I've done my job.
You've done your job.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, thanks for taking time with us. We talked about your book. We talked about I put the post here on the Facebook page. And for those of you that are watching this later on, it'll be in the show notes. Those of you that want to see this on replay, obviously it's going to be on thebaldavengershow.com. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share. Anybody that's going through menopause, it's going to be a really helpful show for them. So make sure you share it out.
Or anyone who loves somebody going through menopause.
Or anybody that loves somebody. So that would be, right? If it's 50 to 70 million, then you've got all the men or their partners or their
children,
whoever's dealing with it.
Yeah.
A little bit of a heads up. So thank you, again for sharing with us and spending some time with us today. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Thanks so much.
Yep. Namaste.
All right. Namaste. Bye-bye.
Okay. Talk to you later.